Hello, welcome back to Desperate Living, Cultural Chaos and Forgotten Stories. And as you can see, today I'm joined by the Office Junior. Pi, you want to say hello to the people? No, she's completely indifferent. And I suspect that she's not a big fan of Alejandro Jodorowsky, which is more her loss than ours, I'm afraid. Because we're here to talk about the new release of Santa Sangre. Now I say new release, this is new for the UK. This is essentially a duplicate of the US edition that came out a few years ago through Severin, the 4-disc version, which was in itself Severin's second version of the film, and my third copy. I'd previously had the other Severin edition, and if we go back to the DVD days, the double disc edition from Anchor Bay, God bless them, for which I actually contributed booklet notes. But as far as the UK goes, this is the first version of this film to be out in a very long time. And obviously, as you can see by the size of it, it's a fairly luxurious new version. Comes across 4 discs, as stated. One of them the UHD, one of them the Blu-ray. The third disc is nothing but extras. I say nothing but extras as if that's a minor thing. Obviously the extras are quite extensive, including the feature-length documentary and lots of interviews. And the 4th disc is the fantastic soundtrack from Simon Boswell. So let's get on with opening this up. Now I should say that on our last video review of Anthropophagus and Absurd, I had a comment from somebody who was very distressed about the fact that I removed the whole of the shrink wrap. And all I can say is that if you're that person, probably best to either stop watching or at least look away now, because I'm going to do it again. And there's a reason for that. 2 reasons. One, because I'm not really that bothered about keeping the shrink wrap on to hold on to the disc in premium condition. There are other ways of doing that, whether it's putting them in bags in the way that we would do with comic books. Also because, you know, I'm generally not thinking about reselling this stuff, and I keep them all fairly nicely stacked on shelves. It's not like they're all being piled up and thrown around. Anyway, I don't feel like I have to excuse myself. But if you're really upset by it, also note that I do have the US version, and that's still shrink wrapped entirely, and will probably stay that way. So as you can see here, it's a nice little, what do we call these? Not 3D so much, but like a little embossed cover. Yeah, very nice little addition to the packaging. Let's take it all out and see what we have inside. So, nice little fold-out booklet and things rattling. Let's take these postcards out for a moment so we can just finish looking at the disc itself. So there we go, 4 discs. And sorry about this, Pi. Yeah, we can see that underneath the disc, you can see there, that's the same image that is on the disc. Let's take this one out. Okay, so I think we can assume that the back cover for the inner tier will be the same. It's the same image that's on the disc itself. Nice little fold out with stills from the movie, including its arguably most iconic image. Now let's have a look at these. So there's, yes, reproductions of a German still set. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So they sit in the center there, bound obviously to roll about a little bit once you've actually removed this from the main box. Let's put the film back inside and let's talk a little bit about Santa Sangre. It's great to see this film back out. It is a movie that I first saw on its UK theatrical release, when, as you can imagine, it was quite the experience. It was also something of a censorship hot potato at the time. Interestingly, Jodorowsky is one of those filmmakers who people had long written off before this film came out. His most famous movies, I suppose, still remain El Topo and The Holy Mountain, that made him a counter-cultural icon in the early 1970s. But by the end of the 70s, with the failure of his movie Tusk, he seemed to effectively disappear, at least as a filmmaker. His career's been very much like that, it has to be said. Great popular successes or cult movie successes, followed by crashing failure. This movie was followed by The Rainbow Thief, that had very little distribution and very few people saw. So Santa Sangre was produced by Dario Argento's brother Claudio, and was inspired, allegedly, by Jodorowsky's meeting with a real-life serial killer. Like his earlier films, it's a bit of a family affair. His son Axel plays the lead role, and his other sons Aidan and Theo also appear in the cast. It's set around a circus, which it's one of those great magical, mystical circus movies. Reflects many of the obsessions that Jodorowsky has had in his earlier works, what we might call quote-unquote freaks. Mental disturbance, mutilation, religious devotion, brutal, cruel violence that leads to enlightenment, and finally redemption. It's all here in this movie. It's shot in Mexico City and effectively features a fairly unknown Mexican cast as its supporting players, alongside Guy Stockwell, Dean Stockwell's brother. It was quite a straightforward shoot, it seems. He wasn't struggling with interference from the producers, and so was able to put his vision on screen as he wanted. It did take a little while for this movie to get any kind of international distribution. Censorship problems in the USA delayed it somewhat in America. This was around the same time that movies like Wild at Heart and a couple of others were effectively pushing the boundaries of what could be accepted in an R-rated movie, with filmmakers refusing to get the tainted X rating. This all, of course, led to the NC-17, that was a rating with so much hope that, and then just failed miserably. But that is, of course, a different story. It was passed uncut by the BBFC in the UK, and the critics seemed to rather like it. Newspaper hacks seem to find it a bit incomprehensible, as you might expect, but by and large it had positive reviews. Funny enough, it was later dismissed by a lot of people, some of whom don't seem to have actually watched the movie, as just being disposable art house fodder, pretentious and pointless. It's actually fairly accessible, as you probably know. It's not a film that sits alongside something like The Holy Mountain in terms of incomprehensibility and philosophical weirdness. It's a pretty straightforward story. It is one of those movies that you find yourself watching that has no connection to anything else you may have seen. But, you know, it's a challenging film, certainly, but that's not a bad thing in itself. You know, it's disturbing, it's unsettling, it's weird, but it's also very accessible if you approach it in the right light. I mean, let's put it like this. If you like the works of David Lynch, if you like the works of David Cronenberg, and if you like the works of somebody like Peter Greenaway, then I think this film is very much up your street. It also has an influence of body horror. It's arguably Jodorowsky's only horror film. Depends how you want to define that genre, of course, but it's the closest he becomes to classic horror, shall we say. It's got surreal dreamlike imagery and eye-popping gore moments. I mean, Jodorowsky certainly was a fan of horror films at this period. He was interviewed by Stephen Thrower for Eyeball magazine in 1990, and he was very enthusiastic about films like Videodrome, Hellraiser, The Evil Dead, and Street Trash, which he interestingly compared to the paintings of Jackson Pollock. And, you know, I may not have made that connection myself, but once it's put there, you can see where it's coming from. So Santa Sangre is a great work of art. It's a great work of genre cinema. It's a classic film of late 80s, early 90s surrealist horror. And this edition from Severin is as good as it will presumably ever get in terms of both packaging and picture. I mean, clearly there will be something that comes along to replace UHD at some point, but do we really need it? I'm not so sure. You should also pick up Jodorowsky's other movies, which are a little harder to get, but I think you can still get El Topo and The Holy Mountain through Arrow. And yeah, you should do that before those movies end up being deleted, because those are films that seem to come and go very quickly. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, by all means, give us a like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment, and hit the alert bell so that you never miss out on future Blu-ray and UHD uncoverings. And we'll see you again next time. Bye. Hi? You want to say goodbye to the people? No. No, she doesn't. Thanks for watching.